When people in the West imagine a dystopia, they tend to picture something loud and dramatic. Jackbooted soldiers, televised executions, environmental collapse, or zombie apocalypses. Our cultural reference points, The Hunger Games, The Handmaid's Tale, 1984, The Walking Dead, all condition us to expect dystopia to arrive as a sudden rupture, an unmistakable event that clearly separates before from after. But China demonstrates a far more disturbing reality. Dystopias don't have to announce themselves. They can emerge quietly, gradually, and bureaucratically until life becomes constrained, monitored, and distorted, yet still functional enough that most people simply adapt. China today exhibits many of the defining traits of a dystopian society: pervasive surveillance, extreme state control, social atomization, demographic collapse, economic stagnation hidden beneath official optimism, and a population conditioned to accept these conditions as normal. The most frightening part is not that China fits the definition of a dystopia, but that it does so without looking like one, and that we in the West often fail to recognize it because we are watching for explosions instead of erosion. One of the clear signs of China's dystopian trajectory is its social structure, which is quietly breaking down without triggering outright chaos. The gender imbalance caused by decades of the one-child policy has produced a severe shortage of women, leaving tens of millions of men permanently excluded from marriage, family formation, and social stability. This is not just a dating issue, it is a structural fracture. Marriage in China is closely tied to class status, property ownership, and economic security, meaning that men without wealth or urban residency are effectively locked out of adult life. At the same time, China faces a rapidly declining population, with birth rates collapsing despite state pressure campaigns urging people to have more children. Young people increasingly opt out of marriage and parenthood altogether, citing unaffordable housing, brutal work culture, and lack of future prospects. Classism is deeply entrenched through systems like hukou, which limits social mobility and access to services based on birthplace. None of this produces mass rebellion. Instead, it produces resignation. The average Chinese citizen grows up surrounded by constraints, social, economic, demographic, and learns not to question them, but to navigate around them. This is what dystopia looks like when it matures. Not constant terror, but widespread emotional withdrawal and quiet despair. Economically, China presents another hallmark of dystopia: a system that looks strong from a distance, but feels brittle from within. The housing market, long used as a vehicle for growth and social stability, has become a speculative bubble of staggering proportions. Entire cities of empty apartments coexist with families unable to afford housing, while local governments rely on land sales to stay solvent. Home ownership, once sold as a guarantee of security, increasingly resembles a financial trap. At the same time, China's manufacturing dominance, often treated in the West as unstoppable, is under pressure from rising labor costs, declining foreign investment, supply chain diversification, and internal inefficiencies. Youth unemployment has surged to levels so politically inconvenient that official reporting has been suspended. Yet daily life continues. People go to work, malls stay open, trains run on time. This is not economic collapse in the cinematic sense, it is economic stagnation masked by scale. In a dystopia, systems don't need to fail completely. They only need to fail slowly enough that people adjust their expectations downward. Over time, citizens stop asking whether the system works for them and start asking only how to survive within it. Politically, China offers perhaps the most textbook example of modern dystopia: a state that exercises extraordinary control while framing that control as protection, stability, and competence. The COVID era revealed this with brutal clarity. Entire cities were sealed off, citizens were confined to their homes, people were denied food, medical care, or freedom of movement based on algorithmic risk assessments, and dissent was censored or punished. These were not temporary emergency measures in the Western sense. They were extensions of an already deeply embedded surveillance state. China's digital monitoring systems, facial recognition, location tracking, data aggregation are not experienced as shocking intrusions by most citizens. They are simply part of life. Children grow up assuming they are watched. Adults learn to self-censor instinctively. Protest is rare, not because repression is always visible, but because the boundaries of acceptable behavior are internalized. This is dystopia perfected. When control no longer feels imposed, but ambient. When fear is replaced by habit. The real danger of China's dystopia is not confined to China. It lies in what it teaches us about how dystopias actually form. They do not arrive through a single tyrant or a single catastrophe. They emerge through incremental compromises, small trade-offs between convenience and freedom, safety and autonomy, stability and dignity. Western societies often assume they are immune because they expect dystopia to look like overt tyranny or total collapse. But China shows that a society can slide into dystopian conditions while retaining modern infrastructure, consumer goods, technological advancement, and even national pride. Alarmingly, many of the same pressures, housing unaffordability, declining birth rates, social isolation, digital surveillance, political polarization, and normalization of emergency powers, are already present in Western countries. The lesson is not that China is uniquely flawed, but that dystopia is a process, not an event. By the time it becomes obvious, people are already accustomed to it, and that should frighten us far more than any fictional apocalypse ever could.